A lot of times I get asked, why do you carry so many different kinds of wheat? What is the difference between this wheat and that wheat? You got hard red wheat, hard white wheat, soft white wheat. You've got spelt, you've got einkorn, we've got durum wheat, we've got all these different things. Why do we need so many kinds of wheat? Well, let me tell you a little bit about how the different kinds of wheat are used. So the two main categories of wheat are the hard wheats and the soft wheats. Most of the bread throughout the world is made from hard wheat flour. When we do bread flour or ultra unifying bread flour, those are made out of hard red wheats. They make a nice texture in your bread, and they react very well with yeast or with bacteria to rise and create a nice air bubble. If you're using whole grain, though, they're darker in color, so they're going to give you a little bit darker colored loaf. If you want the same basic attributes of a hard wheat, we also have the hard white wheat, which is just lighter in color. You can make a whole grain bread out of that, and it'll still end up being the same kind of texture and stuff of a hard red wheat, but it's lighter colored. So you can get all the benefits of whole grain bread, all the nutrient benefits, and be a lighter color. So that's hard white. So we have hard reds, hard whites. Now, soft white, which is actually what this field is or was here before we harvested it, that's used for everything that's in the pastry world. So pancakes, waffles, muffins, cakes, anything that you don't use yeast or starter for, anything that you're going to use like baking powder or baking soda, or just use as a flour on breading or anything like that, this is the best one. It's light in color. It's a little bit, comes out with a little bit finer flavored texture. So it makes the very best of pastries. You definitely, if you're going to make a cake, this is the kind of wheat for you. Now, durum wheat is also known as semolina. That is specifically for pasta. It's kind of a heavy, dense wheat. It doesn't react as well to yeasts and stuff because pasta doesn't use the yeast, but it has a very strong texture in the starch content that makes it hold together very well. So that's why it's used almost exclusively for all different kinds of pastas. So then we have the ancient grains. So the ancient grains, again, healthier version, most of the time because they have not been hybridized into modern methods. So they have all the original, einkorn has the original chromosome level of the ancient grains still. Most of the other, even ancient wheats, have modern chromosomes. So if you go through those, einkorn is very similar to wheat in the way that it acts. You can use that for bread. It's more like the hard red of the ancient grain world. Use that for your breads, your yeast breads, anything along those lines. Kamut, which is actually just a fancy name for Khorasan, it's that is more like a durum wheat. So use that any place where you would look for like pasta or something like that. That's really good. They use it for a lot of pastas. You can also use it in breads because it's a little bit of a dual purpose. Kamut is just a made up name. That's something that somebody made up to describe Khorasan. And then we have spelt, which is another ancient grain. It can also be used for both breads or pastries, either one. It's kind of a dual purpose. Doesn't do quite as good for bread as like einkorn, but it tastes a little bit better on the for a pastry side. So that's more dual purpose. And then of course rye, but that's actually different grain. Rye is a very tall growing grain. I've actually grown it in this very field, and it was at least 7 feet tall when it grew here. But it's used primarily, obviously, for rye bread, but they also use it. It's used widely for a medium for growing mushrooms. A lot of the medicinal mushrooms are grown on rye. So as well as a lot of people make whiskey out of it. So those are kind of the rye usages. So those are kind of a rundown of the various uses of the different grains that are the most popular in the wheat family that we sell here at Azure.